Hello and welcome to Offscript. I'm Josh, CTO at edtech company Genio and software consultant for almost 20 years. And I'm joined by James, who runs a digital consultancy, Parallax, making beautiful software with a focus on AI and IoT. On today's Offscript, we're joined by guest Tom Forth, who heads up the team at the Data City. Thanks for joining us, Tom. Do you want to intro yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tom Forth. I'm the CTO and co-founder at the Data City. So we're about 35 people now in central Leeds. We've got all the websites of all the companies in the world, and we use AI to tell people what they do.
Amazing. And I'm James. I run a tech consultancy, mostly focused on innovation. But yeah, I think the reason we wanted you in is because we think that Leeds is a fantastic place to do business. There's loads of innovative stuff that's happened here. Like we had the first moving pictures, like Louis Le Prince. We had first steam locomotive. I think more recently, like the free serve dial-up revolution just happened just around the corner from where I'm sat. And yeah, first internet exchange outside of London. So there's lots of cool stuff that happens here. And we saw your article on national purpose on AI, and it sort of struck a chord. And we wanted to just get you in just to chat about what drove you to write the article, what's sort of tickling you at the moment, what's on your chest.
Yeah, sure. Someone who everyone in the Leeds digital world will know, Stuart Clark, organised a sort of round table with the AI minister, Nishka Narayan, and he came up to Leeds and he talks about AI and what his ambitions were. And I was really impressed by the guy. Like he's a sort of rare minister who's been in the world of AI and digital and tech and seems to understand what he's talking about. We had a chat about that. For various reasons, I spent a week later, I went to a dinner involving him in a similar round table in London at the British Institution. And what I was really struck by was how different the conversations were. I am biased, obviously. I thought the conversation in Leeds was better, but that's not to say that the one in London wasn't good. But I was struck by the idea that when we were talking in Leeds, I think we were being realistic about the discussion being about Leeds and West Yorkshire and how we could contribute to Britain and the world. And in London, there was at times an assumption to think that London was in and itself the world. And it wasn't needing to contribute. It was the world, and the world was open and welcome and invited to join in, which is fantastic. And that's one of the best things about London. But there wasn't much thought about what the world was beyond that, really. Maybe Bay Area. And I got talking to someone there whose report I had been putting off reading. It's a report on the idea of a new thing called Lovelace Labs to put Britain back at the forefront of innovative technologies. It could be around AI, but it also could be about biochemistry, all kinds of innovation. I finally got round the day or two after talking to reading the full report. And as I do when I read these reports, I tend to read them. It takes me a long time to read a report because I make notes on them all. So I had a big part notes. I got more and more frustrated. I quite enjoyed the report, but it's 120 pages. I got more and more frustrated. I had to have a couple of pints, also a standard way for me to read reports.
Yeah.
And then I thought, right, I'm just gonna write out what I've thought about this report. And the Leeds angle on it, which was really interesting, was that the report on Lovelace Labs, which is making the pitch for the future of AI, but also all kinds of science and innovation, should be modelled on a few examples. And it had a British example of the Laboratory for Molecular Biology, which is in Cambridge. And it made out that this was like the first in the world, the pioneering place. It got there on its own 2 feet. It was a great achievement. Cambridge, London, Oxford, Oxford. But the thing was, I got my PhD from a Laboratory of Molecular Biology. I got PhD in biology from the one in Leeds, which is 15 years older, which came first, which did a huge amount of the work that no one knows about. So, for example, Florence Bell is a name that no one really knows. People know the name Franklin, who took the first images of DNA. Well, Bell in Leeds took images earlier. I mean, she was doing all that stuff. They wanted to get ahead and win. they were not given the money in order to do that, and that money in order to create the laboratory of molecular biology went to Cambridge and London, not to Leeds. And I just thought it was important to write that up. I think just as then, in the 30s and 40s, well, crikey, we're nearly into the 30s and 40s now. So 80, 90 years ago, just as then, Leeds was doing a lot of really, really interesting stuff. And probably the UK government and British national institutions weren't picking up on it and weren't backing it enough. And we lost out on a big opportunity as a result of that. And if we're going to try and do the same now with Lovelace Labs, bring back pioneering innovation to Britain, I want to make sure that we don't get ignored like we did 80, 90 years ago now. And I do feel at the moment that we are being ignored. If you read that paper, it's all people in London, Oxford and Cambridge talking about London, Oxford and Cambridge. Sometimes they will think outside of London, Oxford and Cambridge, and that means thinking about America. But they are never thinking about Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield, Newcastle, those type of places. So I just wanted to write that all up.
Yep. And I guess you got progressively more angry as you're scribbling notes on the paper as you go along. But how important do you think academic research and this kind of funding is to innovation? Is it a prerequisite? Is it super important? And something you touched on is it feels like in London it's people just giving money to their friends a little bit, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually done quite a lot of academic work on this. I published a paper, I want to say it was during COVID. I can remember it because we launched it and I was sat in my flat in Manchester instead of having free drinks afterwards, which was gutting. I had to open my own can of beer at my own launch event afterwards. So, yeah, I've done a fair bit of work on this. I did a report called The Missing 4 Billion with Richard Jones, who's a fantastic professor at University of Manchester, previously at University of Sheffield. The public sector and academic work is really important. I sometimes collaborate with academics on stuff, innovation, new projects, new ideas. It can often be very frustrating. Like, it just works very different to tech companies, especially very different to tech startups. It's more like the biggest tech company of all time, and then even more process and bureaucracy on top of that, and it's painful. But the data is pretty clear that universities are valuable for doing this type of stuff. So for creating ideas, universities are valuable. For training up people, universities are valuable. One of the really important things, I think, is that universities provide a pool of people who you can employ when you need to grow and scale as a company. So academics are not treated particularly well. They're not paid a huge amount. They don't have much job security. And a little bit cynically, in the private sector, I'm like, good. Because that means if you need someone who's doing amazing research or has got great ideas or has got the talent you need, you can hire them. So we do know that money flows out of academia to businesses doing innovative things. We know that in this country, we overwhelmingly fund our academic work in 4 cities, actually, London, Oxford, Cambridge and Edinburgh. It's no surprise that those are 4 very innovative and successful cities. If we funded more of the work in other places, I think we'd get a bigger outcome and more bang for our buck. Especially since if you are in Oxford and Cambridge, especially, you probably can't afford to start and grow a business. It's really hard to start up and scale. Everything just costs a huge amount of money. There isn't any lab space. There's not much office space. You certainly won't be affording a house. So there's lots of advantages that we would have if we thought a bit more nationally about these things. And I just love Britain to do it. There's another part of what I wrote about, which is a bit of a detailed technical part of the history of science in Britain, which is, so I live in Headingley, sort of Burley Park area of Leeds. When I cycle through into town, because our office is in the city centre, I cycle past it's sort of a weird office park in the middle of a residential area in Headingley. And you just think, well, why is there an office park in the middle of a residential area in Headingley? And that used to be the Wool Industries Research Association. That used to be an sort of semi-government funded, semi-industry funded. It was actually funded by a levy on wool and textile industries. It was a big place that was just researching the future of wool. And people might not realize how important wool is to all sorts of innovation, but huge amounts of innovation come from wool. Like the reason we know about molecular biology is because we worked on wool in Leeds. The reasons why wool shrinks or expands or tears when it gets wet or hot ultimately ends up with us discovering the structure of DNA. That's how important the two things are together. But there's other things around wool, like I actually went once on a fantastic trip to the University of Huddersfield. They've got this programmable loom, so you can sit there and you can type in and draw whatever picture you want, and it will actually go and weave that for you, a computerized loom.
I've actually seen
that's
that.
also,
Yeah.
that's actually the origin of computer programming in many ways. So the Jacquard loom and the concepts of programming around that. So it's sort of strange, but wool, cotton, linen, those three fabrics really, and obviously anyone who's been and seen Temple Works in Leeds will know how important linen was to this city as well, because I think that was a linen mill. But those three, they are the foundation of a huge amount of innovation that goes right through into the modern world. But we closed that wool as a country, where we closed that Wool Institutes Research Association. Weirdly, it was Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister had some quite strong opinions on science. And she actually felt, which I always think it feels sort of like opposite to what you'd expect of her. She thought that we shouldn't be doing as much science close to industry. We should be just doing pure science for the beauty of science and for the glory of winning Nobel Prizes, probably. So she found, just as much of like the British institutional world had also found, and a lot of people thought, especially in London and around Royal Society, that this wool research in Leeds was a little bit dirty. It was a little bit mucky. People were getting their hands wet. It was a little bit too close to industry. Some of the people, dare I say it, were thinking about making money, which was completely unacceptable. So she closed it down. So she just said, no, we're not going to have your Wool Industries Research Association. We're going to close that down, and we're going to really focus our money on pure core research with, more academic-looking people who didn't accidentally get grease on their hands whilst they were fixing a woolen mill or that kind of thing. People who wouldn't know their way around a sheep, really. They wanted to make it much more academic, high-tower, and that meant Cambridge, Oxford, London, right? So this was a big part of the story of how we moved scientific research that was creating new industry and prosperity from Leeds, and the same happened in Manchester, to Cambridge and London.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a shock to Margaret Thatcher that you can actually use scientific methods while touching a sheep, but that's going to come really bad in the edit, that one.
Yeah, let's not forget Margaret Thatcher's great invention of the Mr. Whippy ice cream. I mean, she played a small role in the invention of the Mr. Whippy ice cream, and whatever anyone else thinks to her, I think we should celebrate that. I was in Redcar, of all places, near Middlesbrough recently, and I saw that he's got an ice cream shop which claims to be the home of the lemon top. And there's so much innovation. You can get an orange top, you can get a chocolate orange top, you can get like a multicolour rainbow top. And I just thought, yeah, that's a lot of innovation in the Mr. Whippy ice cream space. And I thought, good. And now I've linked it back to Thatcher and hugging sheep to create new science.
It all links back to that. But yeah, I've been to the University of Huddersfield quite a bit because I'm an external advisor on their textile recycling AI project, which is EPA SRC funded, which is interesting. But yeah, there's some textiles that should have never existed in this world, essentially, that
Yes.
we've been lied to that they could be recycled, and really there's very few routes to actually chemically dissolving or unpicking it.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, exactly that type of thing is what I would love Britain to be doing more of. I would love us to be working on things that realistically, I mean, I don't want to prejudge, James. Maybe you will win a Nobel Prize for your AI in textile recycling work,
Maybe.
but it's a long shot. And I think in Britain we tend to focus on the ultra elite, purist, high end stuff. Still, we still don't want to let our research and our ideas and our innovation get too close to, again, making money, improving industrial processes, building things. We want to be a little bit purer. But if it were up to me, I would be spending much more of our AI money and our thinking around AI on things like you're doing than I would be on perhaps the really deep thinking around the concepts of AI that, very important stuff, but I'd like us just to shift the balance a little bit. It's probably, you'll probably know this from your work, but the British textile industry obviously led the world. That was the basis of our industrial revolution, was first place really to automate textiles in Bradford, Rochdale, Manchester, Leeds especially would be 4 places that were taking wool and cotton and just creating cloth at scales never before imagined and automating it all with steam and later on with steam, but even earlier on just with machines. We did also invent a lot of those horrible synthetic fibers that you're now trying to unpick.
Unfortunately, yeah, non-wovens and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So this guy. So I did my PhD at the Astbury Centre at the University of Leeds. There's a guy, William Astbury, who his autobiography, which I really like, and which I sort of took segments from in my blog post. He was called the man with the monkey nut suit because he invented a synthetic fiber made from peanut shells, I think, or peanuts in some way. And it was very good, but it was too weak. So it was later when they invented, I want to say, polyester in Accrington or Manchester, somewhere like that. Polyester, I think, was the real breakthrough because it was warm and durable and all kinds of things. But the specific details of which synthetic fibers we invented where, I daren't say on a podcast without precise notes in front.
Fact checkers will be in the comments. Yeah.
It's left as a fact checker's exercise, but we invented a lot of these, and as you say, and now trying to figure out, they're so good that they just will never. There's a reason why you can go to a secondhand clothes shop and there's still a 1974 shell suit. Like, and you look at it and it's still brightly coloured, still nearly perfect quality. It's great. Clothes that never break for 50 years, and then 500 years, and then 5,000 years.
Yeah, and then it's in the ocean.
Because you can't recycle them.
Yeah, you can't recycle them. Nothing will eat them. Everyone's there going, "Oh, no, don't want a moth to eat my wool jumper." So, well, don't worry about your moth eating your polyester jumper, mate.
So one of the things you can do is set fire to it and turn that into energy, but they're going to outlaw that soon, which means we're now going to probably sell it to countries that don't care about what we do with it. And
problem solved.
They'll just stick
problem
it in
solved, James.
Yeah,
just bundle it all up and export it to somewhere where we don't look too carefully, and then the problem's over, isn't it? It's interesting you say that, right? So one of the things that I do in Leeds, which is probably no one in the real world in Leeds cares that I run a 35-person tech startup, right? Everyone's like, yeah, I'll go to the pub with my mates after football on a Thursday night. Tom, don't care. I mean, I don't care. I've had a tough day at work. I don't care about your tech world. But they will say, when's my bins getting collected? So I run the Leeds Bins app, which tells
Oh,
people when their
nice.
bins are going to be
Yeah.
collected in Leeds. It's used by 1 in 5 households in Leeds, and it's quite well loved. People do let me know when their bins haven't been collected, and people are always giving me feature suggestions for that bit of technology. The reason you remind me of it is there's a bit of a secret in Leeds is a fantastic city council for not sending any waste to landfill, which is great, right? Great positive news story. I can see Tom Reardon and his successor now saying, oh, I'm glad Tom's being positive about Leeds on the podcast. That's great. Good lad, supporting Leeds. And obviously the reason that we don't that we don't send any of the waste that we all put in our black and green bins to landfill is because it's not because we recycle it. It's because we've got a lovely incinerator that burns all of our waste. And so, yeah, with those textiles, with a lot of stuff, the solution increasingly is to burn things. Like obviously a tin can, that's valuable, that will get recycled. But quite a lot of the other stuff that we put in the bin just gets incinerated.
Yeah, which actually isn't as bad as you'd think. If you try and recycle things, it can actually take a lot more energy and be worse for the environment. Although, even though the public perception might be, oh, it's being recycled, melting down plastics and things is an awful idea. It's not a good thing to try and do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Well,
really tricky.
Anyone listening who's got the chance to have a tour of their local incinerator, you can ask in Leeds. You can ask. I've had a tour of the. It's called the RERF. It's called the Recycling and Energy Recovery Facility. If you call it an incinerator on site, they will kick you out. They say no, it's recycling
what I
and
really
energy
enjoyed there
recovering
is,
facility.
as you said that term, your camera zoomed in for the real
Yeah, it's
sort
incredible.
of moment. Yeah.
It made it a really nice moment. That I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That let it down well. I do like that they've covered it in moss though, so it does feel a bit more, eco. If I'm thinking about the same one you are.
Yes. Yeah. That's
So-
in East Leeds. Yeah, it's good. So you can go there. You can see your waste being sorted. You can see your waste, being recycled, incinerated. They obviously burn the waste. They create electricity. They charge the electric bin lorries using the electricity. The waste heat goes into the Leeds district heating system. So most of the council buildings and a lot of the flats in East Leeds are heated with the waste heat there. And then the ash that comes off it, I think, is used to build like breeze blocks. So
Okay, nice.
you're not incinerating stuff. Isn't breaking everything. It creates energy, and it does create waste products that are then used again, largely not buried in the ground. So it's not all bad.
It's not all bad.
Nice.
So if I may redirect the conversation slightly from Thatcher's ice creams and incineration, if we could move on a little bit just back to your sort of article, because I think you talk about how innovation happens outside of London despite the sort of funding structure that you sort of mentioned in your post. And I think there's a lot of evidence of successful tech companies outside of London, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Oxford. You talk about Bet365 quite a lot in your post. Do you want to just talk a little bit to sort of some of those outside of London success stories and what your thoughts are on them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have a tendency in Britain, and this was something that I wrote about in this blog post, but I've also got a special single blog post just looking at Stoke-on-Trent. And one of my favorite things, because at the Data City we work with a lot of economic data, I'm on top of a lot of economic data. I'm always on the lookout for a surprising fact. It's easy to find surprising facts that aren't true, so it's always great when you find one that is true. And I found this amazing surprising fact, which is that the tech sector of Stoke-on-Trent is larger than the tech sector of Oxford, larger than the tech sector in Cambridge, larger than the tech sector in Brighton, larger than the tech centre in Milton Keynes. It's like Stoke-on-Trent is where technology is happening. And the reason for that is because Bet365 are a technology company. Pretty much invented in-play gambling. So if you Those of you who do gamble should do so responsibly, obviously. But if you do that and you sort of like 70, 80 minutes into a Leeds game and Leeds are winning, everybody will be tempted to put a fiver on Leeds conceding a stupid late goal and actually drawing or losing, which is the typical pattern. And that was largely invented in Stoke-on-Trent by Bet365. And they are a hugely profitable and successful company. So £1 billion a year of GVA, which is like all of the wages summed up. It's a huge amount of money. So you've got just loads and loads of examples. So Bet365 is until Revolut overtakes it, probably about now, Britain's most successful tech company in terms of like revenue, profit, that type of thing.
That is a really good surprising fact. So you didn't expect Stoke-on-Trent to have that going on, would you?
No, and it's a fantastic economic story as well, because like Stoke-on-Trent is there because the Coates family are from Stoke-on-Trent and decided to set up their transition. They took an existing gambling business and transitioned it to an online one. They're in Stoke-on-Trent. As Stoke-on-Trent has become too small a place to hire in, they've expanded to Manchester. So now over half of their job adverts are in Manchester. That's a massive success story. We look at the UK's biggest publicly listed tech company, that's Sage, who are in Gateshead and Newcastle. So they'll probably do your accounts or handle your payments for many people. It's a massive success story. But even at smaller levels, like I talk quite a lot about TPP and EMIS. In Leeds, we handle 95% of GP records. If you like your NHS GP app, maybe you don't like it, but most people generally like it. The reason that you can pull up your COVID vaccination certificate back in the day when it happened, or the reason that you can do an online booking for your GP, and the reason why your prescription history is available to you is because of stuff that happens in Leeds. There's hundreds of examples like that probably aren't as sexy and exciting as Anthropic creating MCPs in London. Now, that's amazing. I'm really glad that Anthropic come to London and create MCPs there. I'm really happy that DeepMind exists in London and does some amazing pioneering stuff. I'm super happy that ARM in Cambridge are designing the instruction set for the computers that now dominate the world of technology.
Super important, yeah. This is such a shame sold off to the US. And EMIS similarly may go to US private equity as well.
I think it's already done it, James. I think EMIS is already gone, yeah. And the rumours around TPP are that it might be in that world as well. But, I mean, I suppose my broader point is there is a lot of more boring digital technology firms doing things that are, in many ways, actually more important to our everyday life. Like, if you're in Morrison's and you think that the self-checkout is really bad, and suddenly someone in Bradford creates a self-checkout system for Morrison's that improves your life by 2 minutes every time you're in Morrison's, that makes a big difference to your life. That is happening in Leeds. If it's the Co-op one, it's happening in Manchester. If it's the Asda one, it is now happening again in Leeds. I mean, for a while when they were closely working with Walmart, that was possibly happening in more places. There's all sorts of things. Like there's a company in Stockport who probably sort out your taxi ride. Like, they were bought by Uber. Behind the scenes, I think they're called Autocar, but obviously they're called Uber now. But there's loads of stuff that's happening in technology which maybe happens below the shiny part of the technology. But my guess is going to be, and we can have a look and we can check it out and we can guess afterwards. It's left as an exercise to the listener, but my guess would be that Uber in Stockport are employing more people and paying more wages than Wave doing self-driving cars in London. Now, I think self-driving cars in London is super cool. I can't wait to go in a self-driving car in London. I'm very excited about it. But it's just as important that you'll be able to have an app that lets you book an Amber Cars in Leeds. And that's happening. So both of those are really important. We need to not forget that those things are really important. And as a country, if we want to have a national purpose for AI, we need to back both, and we need people who are thinking about these things to be mindful of that part of the tech economy.
Yeah.
Another example I give in Leeds all the time is TransUnion. So TransUnion are in Leeds, having bought Call Credit. That is doing credit rating so that lots of us can borrow money all the time. It makes the economy tick for millions and millions of people in the world. A lot of that work is happening in Leeds. As a country, our AI minister and our big AI experts are going to be very excited about Revolut. I can't blame them. I was excited about Revolut. I mentioned Revolut earlier because it's so cool, because I like doing my expenses in my Revolut app. It's loads easier. But it's just as important, possibly even more important, that I can, if I need to suddenly fix the windows in my house, get a loan. And that loan is possibly going to go via this system that is largely maintained for the UK and Leeds. And we've got loads and loads of those examples. I'd love us to think more about them. And I'd love us to get back to the point of my essay. I'd love us, when we think about the British government and Britain's institutions backing the future of British technology and innovation, I'd love them to be thinking just as much about these companies as they may be thinking about the most exciting ones, doing self-driving cars and designing super chips.
Absolutely. And it's not just setting up institutions. It's getting SMEs involved in doing work that currently goes to like PwC and things like that. I don't know if you've seen the AI Skills Hub website, which is effectively a link site. It doesn't have any of its own content, and it's riddled with accessibility bugs. That was £4.1 million.
Yeah, I did. I was about to say that. I saw that it wasn't quite worth £4 million.
No,
There's an interesting thing. Like, I'm having some conversations at the moment. The UK government promised 18 months ago, when they got elected, that they would build something called the National Data Library. And they've now assigned a budget of £100 million to build a national data library. And in 18 months, they've done absolutely nothing. So we set up at datalibrary.uk a national data library site where we've now got 10 terabytes of data collected. We're sharing it for free. It's cost us absolutely nothing. I'm actually looking at the server that runs it right next to me here. I do think that we have a problem with not getting stuff done in this country, just more broadly, where everything seems to cost a huge amount more than people think it can do. And I think actually that does come back to some of the broader things we've been talking about. I am not going to be a very highly considered person in the policy discussion around the National Data Library. I've never been invited to any of the discussions that happen into it, despite the fact that me and Paul Connell and Catherine Connell ran the Open Data Institute Leeds for 10 years. Right, despite the fact that we achieved more running that than the Open Data Institute in London, with £2 million a year from central government achieved. We achieved, with no money from central government, more than they did. But the sort of truth about it is, I got on and did stuff. And that's not, we would think in a tech space and in the sort of tech world, that would be a positive. People would go, oh, wow, look at this. This person's done loads of stuff. That's their guarantee that they can do more stuff. We're going to back them and we're going to get on with it. It's actually almost a negative. It's almost seen as a negative to have done stuff. I mean, I had a call the other day where someone, and they didn't mean it negatively, and they were very nice about it. They weren't being bad, but they did introduce themselves on a call saying, well, I'm in charge of this project, but I'm not technical. So, okay, this project is technical. I'm not against like sort of having non-technical people working in these organizations. That's really important. I'm not sort of going to say there's no room in a technology company for anyone who doesn't know the latest update to Python and what it can and can't do. And obviously AI is going to change all that discussion. But to be almost proud of it is super weird. So that £4 million website pointing us to AI skills training, I've not had a go on it yet. I'm not going to get too stuck into it. Let's see what it's like. In terms of the National Data Library, we're going to spend £100 million on
I just
something
can't
that
imagine what you would even spend it on.
how data is free. I mean, I had this conversation with someone, and I won't. The archive that we are creating at our national data library at datalibrary.uk, I had been told to take £2 million and 3 years to create and host. And I was so, it was like a stage beyond anger. It's like anger crossed with disbelief. Just said, but I don't understand. Like, you're talking about 16 terabytes of data. That's £1,000 of hard drives, right?
Yeah.
So I can just buy the SSDs for £1,000. I've got 1 gigabit internet at home. For £1 a month, I can buy an IP address and I can host that data. How is this costing? How is the starting price £2 million and 3 years? And I honestly do think that what it comes back to is that cultural decision that we made as a country to shift away from our innovation and science system, from being one that was close to industry and was about backing industrial success and builders, and moving it towards being closer to policy world and grand thoughts and Nobel Prizes and how nice the building could be at the Oxford College that was going to host the awards ceremony. It's quite a change when you shift from thinking about a building factory industry mindset to building towards an academic ivory towers policy world mindset. And ultimately, I think that's how you end up with a £4 million AI skills hub or a £100 million data library, neither of which do very well. And I will just say, like, the French have a data library. It's a data.gov.fr. It costs them €1 million a year. So they could have already set up and could run their national data library for a century for the cost that we're going to not build our national data library. And I know the difference. I've lived and worked in France. The difference is a much higher respect for technical skill. I don't think I've ever been on a call with a French company and with French people where anybody would admit to not being a technical person, having a technical discussion. They've got to, of course they do, but I think they would just be embarrassed.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of French firmware engineers, and they're very vocal about the correct way of doing things.
Well, that was very polite, James. Yes. They certainly have opinions. Happy to share them.
Yeah, extremely happy to share them in as blunt as way possible.
Yeah.
So should we talk a bit about the sort of geographies? You know, you're proposing a sort of Manchester case for the, you know, one of the new laboratories in the sort of Lovelace proposal. You sort of went through a process to try and figure out why Manchester is probably one of the better candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. So within this proposal for a national purpose for AI, the Lovelace Labs, it talks about some things that a successful lab would have to, some features of a successful lab, what it would look like, where it would be, who it would work with. And I really liked the proposals. And then I went through a process that basically ended up saying, well, obviously it has to be in Manchester then. Now, I think you could make a case for Birmingham and Glasgow. I make those two cases as well in the blog post that I've got. But ultimately, there was two big things that made Manchester the obvious winner for where the UK government and Britain's big institutions like Royal Society, etc., should be thinking about. Number one is you need to have lots of talented and interesting people. There's no point, and I mentioned being in Redcar earlier and eating me ice creams. There's no point having a major national institute for cutting edge research in Redcar. There's lots of stuff we should be doing in Redcar around high value manufacturing, the future of the steel industry, offshore, net zero. But for this type of thing, the Lovelace Labs, you don't want to be somewhere like Redcar or Scarborough, Whitby, something like that. They're too small. So you want to be somewhere where a lot of people are. And Manchester has, within 100 kilometres of Manchester, there's 20 million people, more or less. And that's about the same as within 100 kilometres of London. So in terms of your big scale, a number of people, Manchester's a fantastic place to be for that. You want to be internationally connected to the world. Manchester is the only place where you can actually fly to the world that isn't London within the UK. So you know, I was looking for weird reasons. You can fly from Manchester to Toronto now, direct flight. You can just do it. You can go places from there. So if we're talking about creating an institution that connects to the world and makes us the centre of innovation, then Manchester would be the best place to do it. And then the third kicker in their argument was we need to get away from the established institutions and their ways of thinking. So we were just talking about why does it take £4 million to build a link site? Why does it take £100 million not to build a national data library? Part of that is about the culture that has accumulated in the academic and policy centre of Britain, London, Oxford, Cambridge. So the actual paper says we need to get out of that. We need to escape from that system to avoid it being captured. Now, I happen to know, I mean, the paper has everyone in the paper is either in Southeast England or in America, mentioned or read in the paper. I happen to know that what they are thinking, without having thought about it too much, is a separate building. Like they're saying, well, we'll do like what we've done with ARIA, the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, which is this new £1 billion funded body that was set up partly by Dom Cummings when he was at Number 10 and funds new types of scientific research. We'll get out of the system by moving down the road and having a new building.
Yeah.
So that's what they're thinking. But I've just read their case and their points, just took them on face value and said, well, the obvious answer here is to have it in Manchester, isn't it? The best way to get out of the system whilst retaining all these advantages of agglomeration, connectivity to the world, and, to be honest, like a history of world-changing invention. We're not very far from Manchester, so let's lump in our Nobel Prizes and our inventions in with theirs. And Liverpool's not very far from Manchester. Let's lump theirs in, and let's lump in Sheffield's with them. Once you start adding in the historic strength of innovation, even the current strengths of innovation and the businesses, Manchester's got a fantastic case to do it. So I sort of made that case. I knew that wasn't the case that the people who'd written the report, and certainly none of the people at this dinner I had in London with the AI minister were thinking. They're just thinking, let's set up a new institute and give ourselves some money. But I sort of wanted to push back on that and make the case objectively. I've made a similar case in the past, and I never quite know when I'm making a case how sarcastic I'm being, but I think about 2/3 I'm serious. I once went on GB News of all places because they were running a piece on why they were running a segment on GB News on why Britain needs to close down failing towns and cities.
Right.
And I was brought on because I live in West Leeds and my dad lives in Bradford, right? So I was brought on to basically say, no, you should be nice to Bradford and Rochdale and Burnley. Just be nice to them. And I came on and I said, I'm really glad we're having this conversation. I completely agree. We do need to shut down and stop supporting small cities that refuse to grow and that haven't made any progress in the last 100 years. And I would start with Oxford first and Cambridge second.
Nice.
Because they are very small places that receive a huge amount of public funding. Like those are just about the two most public sector dependent cities in Britain because of how big the universities are in their economy. And yet they don't generate very much growth at all because it's too expensive to set up and grow a business there. So I took the line of their arguments on face value and I said, look, if you're going to make that argument for abandoning cities that aren't where we're wasting money, we're spending public money and we're not getting much back, great, I agree, close Oxford and Cambridge. And then if we're arguing to create Lovelace Labs somewhere, then you've listed your 3 or 4 reasons where you want them to be: agglomeration, internationally connected, lots of people, outside the current institutions. Well, the answer is just screaming at you. So that does need to be part of the discussion. Now, one of the things I do whenever I read a report now, I use Gemini currently, but I'm going to try these new Chinese ones that have just come out yesterday or 2 days. Yeah, it's this Kimi K2.5. It seems amazing. But anyway, I use Gemini for the moment. Keep it British. Whenever I read a report now, I just give it the report and I say, identify every person and every organization. So it's just named entity extraction for the machine learning people here. Named entity extraction, I pull out every person, every institution and tell me where they work and live. I don't want to know like their address. I just want to know the city and where they are. And it's really good at that. So Gemini will just go off, do what a human would do, which is like find someone's LinkedIn, find their homepage, go to the About Us page, find the X and check where they are. So I do that. I did that on the National Purpose for AI report. There's absolutely nobody outside of Southeast England. So there's like 15 people in London. There's 4 in Cambridge. There's quite a few in Bay Area, USA, and absolutely no one outside Southeast England. Now, I did actually write this up. They did actually make one mistake because it mentioned a Nobel Prize that was won at University of Nottingham. So MRI imaging was largely invented in Nottingham.
Right,
and it mentioned that. So by association, it did mention Nottingham. But that was the basic pattern. These people aren't thinking about the whole of our country. They're setting themselves some good rules about how they would make these decisions, but they can't see what that ultimately leads to. I think it's really important. If we want to build some Lovelace Labs, they should be in Manchester. If we want to build a national data library, the national data library should be in Leeds. It's not really like, I'm not asking for special treatment for Leeds there. The number one case that was made for a national data library by all the people proposing it was, we've got a huge amount of data and we need to make better use of it. And the number one use of data that they talked about was NHS data and data on health. And we know that TPP and EMIS in Leeds have 95% of the data on GP records. It's the actual absolute cornerstone of what we need to do with our health data. We also know that companies like, I don't know what they're called now, but BGSS did a lot of work on NHS Spine, and NHS England obviously were based in Leeds until they were closed recently. So Leeds is the place to do your data library.
Yeah.
And it's not being selected as the place to do the data library because absolutely no one having that discussion is outside of Southeast England, pretty much. And they're not even thinking about it. It's not that they're even, do you know, I used to think that people making these decisions and having these discussions were biased against us. I don't think they are.
They don't think they even know we exist. Yeah.
They don't even think about it. It's not in their mind at all. And when they think maybe about the north of England, they think about the poorest places that have the least potential and the biggest challenges. And they think about how can we help them? And that's a great instinct to have. And I'm glad that as a country, we have that instinct. But it would be much better for us as a country if our instinct was to think, these are places with huge opportunity. How do we get the most out of them? How do we invest in their success? And yeah, National Data Library to Leeds, Lovelace Labs to Manchester. And if both of them just get defaulted to be on Euston Road in King's Cross in London, like ARIA is, like the British Library is, like the Crick Institute is, like this massive list of things that we've built in the last 20 years are, then I won't be happy about it. I'll be upset about it. It will be bad for businesses right across the UK. But also, I just think it's bad for Britain. It makes us a smaller and a weaker and a less important nation than we should be. You know, back in the day, Britain really mattered, and it wasn't just because you could list a company on the London Stock Exchange. It was also because most of what people's lives were based on had been built or invented or perfected somewhere in Britain. That's, you know, it's always bad, isn't it? I always feel bad for the Northern Irish shipping industry. Like Belfast used to build a huge number of ships, and people only know the one that sank. But obviously, the Titanic was built in Belfast, but they were pretty good at building ships. Sadly, the captains were pretty good at driving them into icebergs. But the right across Britain, we've got these amazing companies, an amazing history of innovation. And if we backed a lot more of it, we would be doing a lot better as a country.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so like, I think apart from planting, more northern representation on the funding committee, which is clearly needed, what else do you think? Like, what's the sort of call to action? Because I do feel there's also a sort of confidence thing and a promotion thing that needs to improve. I think generally we've not necessarily been great in the north around promoting some of the innovation that is happening, or being proud of and sort of networking around those themes. I feel that is a component, not a big one, but I do think it's there.
Yeah, I mean, there's two important ways to sort of to take this opportunity and make it happen. One is we need to demand representation and importance. So it should be unacceptable for a UK national body to have all of its meetings in London. I just refuse. Now, if I'm ever invited to these things, I used to think, well, the way to change things is from the inside. I'll go. I just refuse now. I look at the recent, if I'm invited to be on a steering group, I'll just look at where the last 4 meetings were. And if they're all in London, I just say, I'm not doing that. This isn't okay. That's ridiculous. I'm not doing it. So we need to be more like that and push back and demand representation and demand a fair hearing on all this stuff. But that can only ever be at most half of the answer, right? The second part of the answer is we need to keep doing stuff ourselves, but do more of it, and also tell more people about what we're doing. I do think there's two parts of that. I actually think we need to talk a little bit more about our history. I'm never that comfortable thinking about that, because all too often what we do when we talk about the history of the north of England is we talk about big mills and factories. But we do need to remember that, like, Leeds invented the moving picture. The first moving picture was filmed in Leeds. The atom was split for the first time in Manchester. Britain's first Nobel Prize was won in Liverpool. Modern steel was invented in Sheffield, but so was a lot of modern biochemistry invented in Sheffield. The Krebs cycle and citric acid cycle and everything that we know about how the body generates energy, that was discovered in Sheffield. Over and over and over again, we've got stories about innovation and success in the past in the north of England, where I don't think we celebrate those stories quite enough. And I include myself in that. Like, I did not know until I started cycling past the Wool Industries Research Association that it had won a Nobel Prize. I just didn't know. So that I spent 4 years at the University of Leeds studying this stuff, and I never knew that there was this institute that had done it. One of my favorite people on YouTube is a lady in East Leeds called Charlotte Waugh. And she does amazing videos on the history of largely sort of great pioneers and inventions and inventors around the north of England. Highly recommend checking out her YouTube channel. I think we need more people like her. But then I think we also need our companies, especially because that's where the money is, to sort of be a little bit louder, a little bit ruder, a little bit more confrontational about demanding the right to be heard. I think there's one place where we've really improved on this stuff recently, in my lifetime, which is there was, when I was a kid, this lingering intra-northern rivalry. Oh, I don't want to work with you, you're from Manchester. And certainly, like, Liverpool and Manchester never really got on very well. And I do think that's largely evaporated now into just football banter. So I don't know anyone genuinely in business who cares about that. That does give us a new opportunity to have a much bigger discussion about what we're good at and what our potential is and what our future is. So I'd love us to talk more about our history, but not just big mills, also the huge amount of innovation and invention that we've had. And I'd love us to talk more about the future, and I'd love us to take more responsibility for it. So one of the things that's happening, it's like sort of micro stuff, right? But at the moment, Leeds City Council have got a consultation out for a workplace parking levy. So anybody who runs a business in central Leeds, if they have a car parking space at their business premises, the proposal is they'll be charged an annual levy to have that car parking space.
Yeah, my business
Now,
partner Lawrence was on the TV talking about this. Yeah, he was quite
was he being thrilled and positive about it, James?
Not
Was he being positive?
Not
Well,
particularly, no.
it's easy for me to support it because we don't have any car parking spaces. But there is a serious point around whether a workplace car parking levy is the right thing to do. And I'll be clear, as someone with no workplace car parking spaces, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do and should be even higher. But there is a bigger conversation to have around how we stand on our own 2 feet and get our own stuff done. Like, we know we're having this conversation in West Yorkshire at the moment, trying to build a tram in Leeds for what, the third time, fourth time. We've failed to do it for 30 years. One of the biggest things that holds us back is we have to write a huge business case, take it to London, and get someone at the Treasury to be convinced to let us build it by paying us, giving us the money. We're not actually bringing the money to the table to build it ourselves. So why should we have a say? If we want to have better transport in Leeds, but it's the UK government in London that are paying for it, like, why? Why do we deserve that? So we do need to stand on our own 2 feet and sort of just start building things ourselves and improving things. I mean, we talked about things that Leeds does for itself and people who lead that charge a lot at the moment. Most of us will go to Leeds Digital Festival. It is one of the biggest digital festivals in the world. It's one of the biggest digital festivals in the world because a number of events, because the way it's set up is to be extremely decentralized. There's loads and loads and loads of events and they're all really small. So if you just count the number of events, it looks enormous, like 300, 250 events every year. So what Leeds Digital Festival and Leeds Digital do, so like Stuart, Claire, Deb, they do amazing stuff at saying, we're not going to sit around and wait for someone to make this thing happen. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to lean on business to fund it a little bit. We're going to lean on the local government to fund it a little bit. We do need to keep doing that. But I do sort of want to, so we need to do more ourselves. That's definitely for true. I think we probably need to pay some local taxes in order to fund the government locally to do more stuff for us. And that money needs to be for us to spend on our own promotion in certain ways. I am worried about saying, like, it should all be industry that does this on its own. There's lots of good economics books on why freeloader problems are a challenge and why private industry isn't the best place to do all of this stuff. But we 100% need to start promoting ourselves, paying for that promotion ourselves, demanding more respect and doing it. And yeah, let's keep going. But I also just don't think we should be a little bit as, at times, we just want to be liked too much, which is weird. Like, no football fans, whether it's Leeds United or Manchester United or Liverpool, want to be liked. They want to win. We need to remember that our goal in this should be to win, not to be liked. So when we have quite, that they are overly positive responses to pretty weak promises of investment in the north, I think we do ourselves a disservice. When the current UK government says we are going to build a tram in West Yorkshire by 2039, the response shouldn't be, I'm thrilled at the recommitment to this investment. The response should be, sorry, 2039?
Mm-hmm.
You mean 2029, don't you? Why does it take so long? When a UK government releases its AI action plan, and everything in the AI action plan is about London, Oxford and Cambridge, and a little supercomputer for Edinburgh and maybe in Bristol, we shouldn't be saying, we'd love to join in, we'd love to be part of this. No, the decision's made, the report is done. The time to say, I want to join in and be part of this was at the start of the process. When you're at the end of the process, you don't go, I want to join in and be part of this. You say, I'm not joining in. That's your AI action plan. I mean, you can swear a lot more if you want to, but we have to be consistent. We want to be part of a successful and thriving Britain. We should make our case to be part of it much more strongly and be more confident about it. We should put our money where our mouth is on that as well, because it's all too easy to have a round table where everyone agrees we should talk up our strengths much more. I said, well, have you got 100 grand to talk up our strengths? Because that's the sort of money that we need to be doing. We need to be paying the best videographers in the world to promote our place. We need to be paying fantastic bloggers and writers to be promoting our place. It costs money. So it's not just saying, let's be more positive and talk about it. We need to say, well, let's be more positive and talk about our strengths more with money. And then the last thing is, we need to properly kick off. Like, I don't think playing nicely is a good tactic to getting what you need to succeed. Playing nicely is what you would do if everything was working well and you wanted to maintain a comfortable position. And I don't think anybody in Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, I don't think anybody can sort of live their day-to-day life. Their business might be doing well, but they know when they talk to young people that they're worried about getting a job. They know that there are people who are really struggling to pay the rent, cover the mortgage. They know that there's a lot of homelessness. It's not good enough, and have always painting this positive image that we're all working together and it's all going great. And thank you, Rachel Reeves, for the investment. And I don't want to be party political about it. I'm not strongly in any camp on that. Whether it was George Osborne, it was the same. When we have business and civic leaders in the North welcoming everything, it just makes us look a bit weak. And when you look weak as well, like we're trying to, certainly tech companies are trying to attract investment, and investors don't want people who won't speak their mind. They want to know what it is you stand for, because they want to back that ambition. And if your ambition is, I will just say whatever is in my interest with local and national politics that doesn't really matter, they're not going to be terribly inspired by it. So we also need to just start kicking off a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a completely clear call to action, and kick off more. But no, I think it's a really sort of a set of valid points, and I think I think we should probably wrap up soon. But yeah, I think we'll definitely share the sort of link to the article "National Purpose on AI" from you, Tom. And I think kick off more is a good sort of leaving statement, because ultimately I do think there needs to be more confidence, more provocation where it makes sense, actually, and for us to set our stall much more clearly.
And also money, right? Because I do think that's a little bit of a weak part in our discussions often on this, is how many roundtables and how many events have we been at where someone says something like, there's so much amazing stuff happening in Leeds and across the North, and we just need to be a little bit less shy about shouting about it. We should be telling people what's happening more. I said, great, I agree. How much money do you have? Because talking is free, but actually getting the money to the people who are going to talk about it. Because talking about it isn't just talking, right? Talking about it is a value thing. It costs money. So we do need to probably spend more on self-promotion and being arrogant and being rude, being visibly rude. That might be another thing for us to spend more money on.
Yeah, there's definitely a need. Stuart Clark put me in touch with David Savage, actually, who's from Harvey Nash, and they're doing a really great sort of documentary on AI, Growth Zones, which is coming out early this year. And like the quality and polish on this documentary is honestly fantastic, but you can just tell it's not a cheap thing to fund, and where that is going to try and strike the right audiences, you can't just put some homegrown stuff out there. I think you do need to fund it properly and really invest in that PR. Essentially, it's investing in that image, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I read, there's a blog by an American economist called Tyler Cowen called Marginal Revolutions. He gives out micro grants all the time. There's open data on where the micro grants go to. Within the UK, they all go to London, Oxford, and Cambridge. It's not a surprise. It's the same pattern as everywhere. So you've got two options, right? One is you say You call him out. You go, why are you only spending your money here? You need to do that. You shouldn't avoid doing it. Sometimes we're too polite and we don't do it. But that call is valueless unless you also say, and here's how I'm going to fund the alternative that beats you.
Yeah, this is our idea, and you should back us. Yeah.
If I believe that he is leaving ideas on the table by misallocating his money, then the only way that is why would anyone trust me saying that unless I wasn't funding the alternative? So we need to be more critical, but we need to back up that criticism with money a lot more often. And we should be able to do that. You know, there is success in technology in Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool, all over the place. There is money to fund this stuff. We need to start funding it, I think. And we've got fantastic creators, fantastic narrators, fantastic historians who we could be funding to do this stuff. So we just need to start giving them the money.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well,
Fab.
Tom, thank you so much for your time.
Well, good luck turning it into something coherent. It's always hard work, to be honest with you. But you know,
well, I think it's a one take wonder for me. So we'll just hit publish. But so
it could be worse.
It could be worse. Look, thanks, Tom. Really appreciate your time, Tom from the Data City.
Have a nice day.
We'll publish some things, and yeah, we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom. Take care.
See ya. Bye.